Now, it's been weeks since the Judicial Service Commission interviews for the country's next Chief Justice were concluded. And, of course, that process recommended Justice Mandisa Maya for the position. A month later, the President yet to appoint a new Chief Justice. So what exactly is causing these delays? We're joined by senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo in studio. Ziyanda, 147 days. That's how long this country has been without a head of the judiciary effectively. That's how long the vacancy of the Chief Justice has been in place. Any clear reasons why it's taking so long for the President to make a decision?
No clear reasons. And, you know, even when you speak to analysts, it's difficult not to ask them whether or not the President is making any political considerations, given how long this has taken. I mean, if you go back, already the President in October was sitting with a report from a panel on these 4 candidates, even before the Judicial Service Commission interviews. He got that report, which was chaired by Judge Pillay, on who these people are, what caliber they are, what they bring to the table, and what is necessary of a Chief Justice. And then, of course, we have those JSC interviews in February, and we know that whilst this recommendation is not binding on the President, you know, it was a process that we all watched and we all saw how political it became. Yet again, yesterday, the President was asked on the sidelines of his visit to Mpumalanga when we yet to see a new Chief Justice being appointed, and he said soon. How soon is soon? And, you know, we may think that, you know, this is something that's light, but when you speak to someone like Mbegezeli Benjamin from Judges Matter, it's actually having a material impact then on how the judiciary, in particular the Constitutional Court, is functioning. And I want us to actually pull up that bite and listen to what he had to say.
The impact that the not having a Chief Justice has is that the judiciary is basically on autopilot. We know that Justice Zondo is acting as Chief Justice at the moment, but we also know that he is preoccupied with finalizing the state capture report. So he has no time to devote to the other responsibilities of the Chief Justice, including managing the upcoming interviews with the JSC, managing the operations of the Constitutional Court. We heard last week that the Constitutional Court had to withdraw a judgment based on some or other error that happened. And that is unprecedented in South Africa. And a Chief Justice who was attentive to the task would probably not have something like that happen.
Of course, what part of these delays do is take us back to the process of the President nominating a Chief Justice in the first place, because the general speculation at the time was that, or what can I say, the reading into the situation at the time was that the President is indecisive, and therefore, instead of being determined and just outright making a decision, he decided to kick the can further down the road and threw it over to the JSC to interview 4 candidates, which is something that we had never seen before. Are we back in that state again, where the President is seen to be indecisive, despite that this process has now been concluded, and he probably has a lot more clarity than before about which way it should go?
So you remember earlier I was talking about political considerations. Now, I mean, we saw, you know, the manner in which the JSC interviews were conducted. There's been a lot of criticism in terms of the conduct of the Judicial Service Commissioners themselves. In fact, there are 8 NGOs that have now written to the JSC to say that they must formulate a code of conduct for the commissioners, and also to which they would be held accountable to, that the public knows what they're being held accountable to, so that also the JSC is even more transparent in how it conducts its affairs. Why am I mentioning this? To answer your question, Kathy, well, yes, the President can be seen to be kicking the can further down the road. It's not the first time that he gets asked about this. He was asked about it during engagement with the media in Cape Town after SONA, and he was asked whether or not he even thought opening up this process, which he didn't have to, because appointing a Chief Justice is the prerogative of the President, whether or not he felt that would, you know, open him up to scrutiny scrutiny if he went against, you know, the nomination by the JSC, and the president really saying that no, he doesn't believe so, but not really, you know, giving much to say about what he thought about the process in and of itself, and whether and how much that's influencing his decision making. So yes, why, Mr. President, are you taking so long? You knew in October, you had a report, you've had these interviews, there have been several articles, opinion pieces, you surely have people whispering in your ear. What exactly is delaying this? And what the risk that this creates as well is, you know, for this to become an even greater political football from other political parties who may be saying, yeah, well, maybe he's taking so long because he knows that, you know, there's someone like Acting Chief Justice Raymond Zondo, who, if he got it, he'd only be Chief Justice for 2 years. But others are saying, well, you know, the endorsement by the EFF of Justice Mandisa Maya is something that has raised concern from some quarters. Why would that be the case? So I think the president now faces even more scrutiny by the time he actually announces the next Chief Justice.
The difficulty is that it's not just holding up the vacancy in as far as leadership of the court is concerned. There are also very important processes, including interviews for judges, that the JC needs to be undertaking soon. What's going to become of that process?
Yeah, so those interviews are meant to get underway in April, the 4th of April, if my memory serves me well. And so there are two things about that. That is a process that would need a Chief Justice to be a critical component of, which is why then they would have started with the Chief Justice interview. So even if someone is announced tomorrow, it would be rather unfair to have them now oversee this process of senior judges to fill up the key vacancies, including in the Constitutional Court. But secondly, that process now may be facing a legal threat if these 8 NGOs who've written to the JSC about having a code of conduct are not responded to before those interviews take place. And so what this also means is that not having a Chief Justice who's taking the bull by the horns and leadership and responding to the public is also causing confusion, given the fact that even if you look at various studies, the public, it's been said that the public is losing confidence in the judiciary. So really, not filling up that post is not doing anyone any good.
I guess it's fair to say then that, Mr. President, can you just make up your mind already? Senior politics reporter Ziyanda Ngcobo.